pass from Havili was magic. The shift on for Crotty. Boom, far down you go, Quackett Smith. Me, oh my, I have enjoyed that. Yes, boy.
Sit back, relax, put your belt on, and enjoy the show.
The main course, Australia and Argentina, the final game, test game of the Tri-Nations. And just how easily will Australia score the 101 points they need to retain the Tri-Nations?
Is it that grim? I thought it was in the 90s.
Nope, it's 101.
It's 101 points, yeah. But no, I think we had talked about before the Tri-Nations. We like the Tri-Nations coming back because whilst New Zealand may have held on to the Bledisloe the last 17 years, since there hasn't been a Tri-Nation since, I think it was 2011, we've technically held on to the Tri-Nations for the last 9 years, which has been great.
It comes to an end.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're now it's going to be a tall order to win it now and then hold on to it in perpetuity. So
how gutted will you be if you win by 98 points?
I'd be pretty happy.
98 points, and it comes down to a Reece Hodge penalty from his own line.
Oh,
In
no.
the last minute.
He's had 2 kicks to basically win it for us, and he gets one more and he misses.
At 98 minutes, I'd take the 3.
Yeah, you'd have to get to 101, go win the title.
But I've got to pull up Squidge. One of my favourite comments you made about Reece Hodge is that his kicking percentage goes up with every metre further away from the post.
Yes.
I think you said when he's outside the stadium, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. It's mad. It doesn't make any logical sense. But I think just because he wellies it so far that it has to fade off somewhere near the post. I love it. I love watching him kick.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. All right. Well, so this game. We'll just, I guess, go through some of the big questions. Obviously, we don't have team lineups yet. We've touched on a lot of points, but look, starting with the Wallabies lineup, some questions for Squidge. James O'Connor back. In theory, I think Harry just read an update today that he's looking good. How does the Wallabies change? He's a good-looking man. How do the Wallabies change with him back at the helm? How do you think they're going to change?
Yeah, I think that'd be very positive. I've been I wasn't sure if he'd be back or not. I think it was interesting how they used Hodge at 10 because they didn't really use him as a 10. You know, it was like they played 3 centres and they kind of missed out the 10 channel, or they had, in the way you sometimes see a 12 slot in and give a few passes. It didn't feel like they had a fly half, and it worked actually in a way perhaps you wouldn't expect it to. Instead, they just had a bloke with an absolute cannon on his foot who could just launch it whenever they were in danger. With James O'Connor, I think there's a bit more shape to it, and he can operate kind of in between that. He can easily operate as an outfield player if they're wanting him to be more of that, you know, rather than just a membrane or a third centre. But he also is a very good and very able to organise player. You know, he's very good at calling things around him as well as being quick and dangerous. And for me, he is quite easily the best option the Wallabies have at 10.
Yeah, agreed.
Interesting the way they were playing that with Hodge at 10. We were pointing out that they played off Nick White a lot. He became their first, the ball player for a lot of it. Yeah. Also, Paisami, coming in, we'd seen him used as a bash and crash outside centre this season, which is the first time we've really seen him in Super Rugby for Queensland. But his skill set is awesome. Far better than we thought it was. He can kick off both feet. He's got a really good pass on both sides. So I think that really helped, stabilise Hodge and sort of help him out a little bit there as well. Took some pressure off.
Yeah, he's been very good. To see he's kind of come out of nowhere. Like I'd seen him play a couple of times in Super Rugby.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been very impressive and looks rounded, and he has a kind of like little bit of class about him. He's got a little bit of time on the ball whenever he gets it.
He was a similar story to Josh Adams. I was just saying in that he was down in Melbourne and told that he wasn't good enough to play Super Rugby or make it, and so went up to Queensland and just worked his ass off. And
There was a period of time he was staying at his manager's office. He had nowhere to live. That was like less than 18 months ago, and now he's in the Wallabies. So it's pretty amazing, rise.
What do you think, Squidge? What's our best centre pairing the Wallabies can put together at the moment?
Oh, I mean, I am a big fan of Paisami. I think he's excellent. I feel like you kind of got to try and get Reece Hodge on the pitch somewhere.
Yeah.
And I don't entirely know where that is. That might be in the centre.
No one does.
Yeah, that's it. Especially not Reece Hodge. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. So O'Connor, Paisami. I am currently Googling the squad to see if there's someone really obvious I'm forgetting.
Well, we had
Jordan Bataille at 13.
Bataille, yeah. But I think Jordan Bataille is extremely good and extremely talented. I thought he played incredibly well at 13 against England in the World Cup. I haven't seen him be as rounded at 13 since. Yeah. I still think he's got a few kind of wingery instincts, a bit like Rico Ioane does.
Yeah, definitely.
Occasionally, he holds the ball in one hand and he doesn't necessarily look to make time for others as you want from a 13. Yeah. But he has the raw ability, and I think he's more of 13 than Ioane is. It's almost for lack of other options unless you move O'Connor or Hodge into the centre. But it's interesting.
I kind of see Bataille a little bit like the Caleb Clark of Australia. He has this amazing ability, but he throws the ball away, misses opportunities. I think a couple of weeks ago, he kicked the ball away with a couple of minutes to go and we needed to score a try. He just hasn't got that polish at the moment. And I found it really interesting that they flipped Kurandrani as early as they have as the guy that was maybe a bit more understated, but such a solid option.
Yeah. There's been plenty of things. I to and fro whether I think Bataille should be on the wing at the moment, giving him that time to develop and play international footy a little bit more, and be able to do the things he's doing at the moment. Right now, I think it just seems that he doesn't. It might be just he's so confident in himself, but he doesn't seem to trust the people around him. He's, as you said, he's not really looking to create something for someone else. And when he does, he did do a little bit earlier on in the Tri-Nations. He's just throwing a silly offload. It's not making that correct decision. I'd like to see him develop. I don't know if anyone really agrees to be 100% fair, but
he's taken on the Samu Karevi-like persona. We used to refer to the Reds as the Queensland Karevis because he just carried the entire team. So I think Jordan Bataille occasionally has some Kobe Bryant vision where it's just him and 29 other opposition players on the field. It's he forgets anyone else exists. Which is great. I mean, he probably has the sheer athleticism to take on another 29 people, but it's this decision making. He's got to come. Will come with time. But moving on, the biggest question, of course, not just because we're talking my favourite position and players, Taniela Tupou or Alan Alatoa. I mean, Tupou, fantastic bench, impact player, but also can play the 80 as he has for the Reds the entire season. Who do you start for this game and in general for the Wallabies out of those two?
I think this is a fascinating question because they're both excellent but very different players.
Yep.
And my instinct is Alatoa starts, but Tupou comes on and then cause utter chaos in the last half hour. Because he will. You get him, as happened in the World Cup and it's happened a couple of times in this Tri-Nations, running at a tired defence because he is like a freight train running at men who can barely stand in some cases. But I really like when they've started him and when they then brought Alatoa on, because he's now capable of playing, about 80 minutes, of playing there or thereabouts. And he hasn't really faded out that much in the last 10 minutes, whenever he has lasted. So you then have him start, and if the scrum isn't going great, Alatoa can come on and fix things. He's almost like a safety blanket on the bench, and you let Tupou go. Just wind him up, just give him a little prod. You'd wind up a little dial on his back and let him go before the game. So all of my kind of conventional instincts and logical thinking says Alatoa and you bring Tupou on. But I quite liked starting Tupou and just letting him run.
It's a hard one, isn't it? I think, look, it's great. It would be great to get your input in terms of where do you think Tupou ranks in terms of the props in the world, the tight head props in the world. I mean, obviously, there's some great tight heads up in the Northern Hemisphere, Furlong, Sinclair. And I think I get very excited and put my green and gold glasses on when I talk about Tupou. But look, he's obviously still young.
Your opinion.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
But yeah, where do you think he compares in terms of tight heads in world rugby?
How long ago did you think he became the number one prop in the world? That's what we've
About 3 minutes ago, yeah. I think he's right up there, and I think you give him another year of playing like this, and I'm very willing to put him into a World 15. If he's able to sustain the kind of performance he has the last 3 weeks. I say he was very good in the World Cup, but he was coming off the bench generally.
Yeah.
So it's hard to go, he's the best in the world if he's coming off the bench. If he can sustain like a year under this and remain consistent, and especially once, as happens when you've kind of had a good run of games, players start to analyze you and work you out and work out what you do, I'd be really excited about him. And I think he could slot in amongst the, as you said, the Furlongs and the Sinklers of the world. And because I don't think there is generally in the front row, it's the hardest position if you're lining up a World 15 to just go, oh, it's this person, they are the best, Yeah. And not for the same reason as the back row, that there's so many world-class players. Like there's lots of very, very good players, but there isn't necessarily one in any of those positions where you go, maybe other than Jamie George, where you kind of go, oh, they are the best. That's as good as it gets in that position.
Yeah.
And Tupou has the potential. You give him a bit longer, and he's only 24, which is really young for a prop, to build, and he could be.
I think the thing that'll stand him apart is when we see him come off the bench as like an inside centre in the next couple of games.
Play number 8.
That's the centre. That's the best midfield. You start.
Got it. Yeah.
Whoa.
What we're on the topic of prop second place centres. I don't know if you've seen any or much of Angus Bell when he's had his tiny little snippets. I think we have a similar opinion of him in terms of where he could become in terms of a prop with his devastating around the field and at the scrum. Maybe a bit early to throw his name in any of those conversations yet, but he's a similar breed, I reckon.
I think what we're saying is we're telling Squidge to keep his eyes on young Angus Bell, 20-year-old Australian prop. But now, look, moving on, we've talked about Reece Hodge, we've talked about Tupou. The two other questions, look, no, we could talk about hookers, but let's stuff hookers. The hard question, who do we drop Ted Flanagan for? Let's be honest, we're dropping him. Who can the Wallabies play at 6? We're saying New Zealand might have found the answer with a Kiriawani. The Wallabies haven't.
There's plenty of options as well. We've got Nasarani, we've got Samu, we've got Valentini. We had Swinton before he got his card. There's a few options there.
He was right on time, Swinton. We gave him about 30 minutes.
Yeah. I even saw an article today that I don't agree with that said bring Arnold back and he's the answer for 6.
What?
Rory Arnold at 6.
But I saw that online today, literally just before this podcast.
That's how desperate we are.
I didn't bother reading it.
Liam Wright as well?
Yeah, Liam Wright.
Yeah.
All right, stop throwing things at him. Squidge, what do you think? Who should the Wallabies play at 6?
I really like Lucas Winton. As you say, there is the problem that he will do the thing he did. But if he can sort that out, I really like the look of him. I assume he's still banned for this game.
He is.
Yeah.
He got 4 weeks.
Okay. Right. Okay. So that's a shame because I would like to see him there. And because I think since Scott Fardy, the Wallabies have missed just an outright bastard in the pack. And he is that. Like, I don't think he'd deny it himself. I really like Fraser McWright, but I think, again, it might be the amount of young back rowers Rennie's thrown in. It might be one too far to start him, certainly. So
very much a 7 as well, open side.
I don't want to start the Fraser McWright fan club because Harry Nelson will talk about him as more than you could talk about Josh Adams. I promise you. So we won't. But I think Swinton. Look, we said in that game it would have been the best piece of coaching ever in rugby if Dave Rennie summoned the courage to, as soon as the All Blacks got a red card, to just take Lockie Swinton off the field. You know what I mean? So we maintained 15 players, just 20 minutes into the game or whatever, just like, yep, all right, he's done. Let's move on. We're going to play with 15 men. But no, I think it's a tough one. I think, how do you feel about, look, I don't want to talk any more about it, but how do you feel about Ted Flanagan now? You proceeded to, my favorite video was trash him for an entire video, then put a footnote on it, which I wasn't happy with. I don't know. I don't think he's up to being a international six.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts now on seeing a few more games, I guess?
I did think until a month or two ago that he was pointless. I just didn't get it. I just kind of went, what's this lamppost in a wig doing in a gold jersey? Why?
We're back. Yes.
Why is he there? What does he do? He just kind of stands there. It's like they were just looking around and kind of went, he's tall. Can he play rugby? And they kind of went, we'll say yes. How much are you paying? And so they put him in because he was big. And he is, you can't take that away from him. He is a big lad. But I think kind of beyond that was a bit like, why? And then I thought, actually, when you watch me as the All Blacks, there's lots of things you expect from an international player, never mind a six, where he is unable to do them, and he just isn't there. And then I sort of started to watch it again as I was kind of going back over, having written and recorded the thing. I was kind of going, actually, he's making a bigger impact than I thought. And he's not necessarily great, but that game weirdly became the best game I've seen Ned Hannigan play. Yeah, admittedly, that's a low bar, but he didn't give away any.
Break.
Yeah, he made a break. He cleared out like 3 rucks. What more can you ask of a player?
That break was the clearest evidence ever, because he was the most confused player on the field at that time. He looked like he'd never seen open space in his life. So
clearly the first time he did it, and he didn't know how to draw the last defender. He just goes, shit, I've made a break. I'll give the ball to someone else.
Yes.
But no, lamppost in a wig, I'm going to use that. That's fantastic. That is. All right, well, so I was going to say move on to the Pumas, onto the Pumas lineup. We've talked about last week, a lot of changes, 10 changes, perhaps too many. That's difficult for any team, despite them all training together a lot. And I think Squidge made a great point about all these players have, been away for 3 months. You kind of got to give some of them some game time. I think they rested some players last week, which is always an odd thing to do against the All Blacks. They talked about resting some players, but we'll probably see some of them come back into the starting lineup. Notably, I think their props. They had a timely return of Geronimo De La Fuente. I think we might see a really experienced pairing there in the centres of him and Orlando. I guess the big question for me with the Argentinian lineup is Guido Petty might be injured, so one of the best locks in the world. We haven't yet talked about how he's been terrorising the lineouts. Just his defensive work getting up in the lineouts has been immense. If he's not playing, I guess really going to be difficult for them to push some of their strengths. He's massive for their team. Where do you see the changes coming for this Argentinian team?
Yeah, I'd imagine they'll swing back more to the team that played the first 2 games as much as they can, I think we might see more of Miotti because we haven't really gotten a good look at him. And considering they brought Sanchez off quite early, because I think he, having been fantastic in those first 2 games, he wasn't entirely firing on all cylinders last weekend. So maybe this is the week where they give him a shot, where they give him a go. But at the same time, I'd keep Sanchez in. I think the form he's been in, the way he's been back, you want to keep his confidence high as much as anything and keep him going. So Miotti might be an option. And in the back 3, I think they've got so many good players that they could change that up. They could put Carreras back to fullback. I'd imagine they'll bring Delgi back in, and I love Batista Delgi. I love the fact that his favourite thing in the world is to run from his own try line. This is a kind of challenge to himself. He seems to love it more than scoring. So yeah, I feel like Delgi will come back in. Sorry, were you about to...
I was going to say, he's one of those players who looks like he doesn't even know where he's going. You know what I mean? Like his dummies and steps are so good because he doesn't even know. It's how it feels.
You're mentioning Miotti because they've confirmed now that Kubeli will not be playing, which leaves Escura and Bertrand now. And I think Escura was atrocious in the first half last week, better in the second, but really atrocious in the first half. So I feel like Bertrand now is surely the guy that's going to get a run. Yeah. And he played all of Super Rugby in the last kind of 18 months, I think, really, with Miotti, right? Like they've actually got a bit of a combination and a bit of a relationship that would make it a little bit easier to bring someone like Miotti in.
Yeah. And I thought I was very much on that. Bertrand is Argentina's best 9 until Kubeli was fantastic in a win over the All Blacks. Yeah, and he kind of now go, oh, actually, no, he's come back round to being the player he was 2 years ago. Because I thought Bertrand was very good in the one game he played in the World Cup, and then as you say, has been fantastic in Super Rugby and has that combination. So I'd quite like to see that. At the same time, you do want to see that, as a neutral, I'd like to see both teams really fire at it. And I'd like to see Argentina play what they consider to be, close to their strongest team rather than resting and giving some players a go. But again, there are players in this squad who haven't played, their own cap players, never mind, who haven't played this year. So I can imagine they might give some other players a go. I don't know if they'll rest Petty considering his injury, but he is so crucial to them and he is so good. So yeah, I'd imagine they'll change the front row. I'd imagine they'll bring back in Delgi. I don't know what they'll do in the rest of the back row. Chocobaras may come back in, but again, they may stick with De La Fuente, who's far more established and plays a similar role.
What do you see? Do you think Facundo Issa did enough? We were massive fans of him, and then I suppose we haven't got to see as much of him since his time over in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah, that's not what the notes.
Don't use the word "were" massive fans.
We are. We were before he left. Before he left, and we didn't get to see him. Against the players that we watch week in, week out. How good has he been in the Northern Hemisphere? Before he's been called back into this squad.
Oh, he's been very good. Consistently, he is excellent. I mean, it helps. So he plays for Toulon now, and he now plays as a kind of starting back row alongside Sergio Parise. And it's useful to have a number 8 who actually does the work rather than just looking like he's doing it, but having a massive ego about everything he does, which is what Parise has been for the last couple of years. His playing ability has waned, but his ego has not.
Is Parise really 200 centimeters tall? Because
I haven't got him and a tape measure next to me, so I couldn't tell you.
I was gonna say that's a bit off the cuff. It's like
I saw it recently, but
Squidge Parise.
I knew that he was big, but I saw something recently saying he was 2 meters tall, and I just thought that was ridiculous.
He probably wrote his Wikipedia page. To be fair,
that could have been
it. In metaphorical standing in Italy, he probably is. He's 7 meters tall, and he will let you know. He is going to be the man to build his own statues. But yeah, every time I've seen Toulon play since he's assigned for them, there's been a lot of him quietly just doing all the work of him carrying really hard, and he is, for the kind of carrier he is and the kind of player he initially burst through as, he's far more of a jackal and a breakdown threat than you expect. He works really hard. Yeah. He's kind of like an all-round back rower. He's fantastic, and he's been very good on both hemispheres. He's been very good no matter where he's playing.
Yeah, I think they missed him sorely in the World Cup playing Ortega Decio. I just don't think he was anywhere near the same caliber of player. I think that was a huge loss for them.
So, something I learned recently: Javier Ortega Decio is the 3rd most followed rugby player on Instagram.
What?
He must have
it's behind. Wife. Yeah, he does. It turns out his wife is massively famous in Argentina. He's married to a massive reality TV star in Argentina. So he is. He just posts photos of her, and then he's just like, yeah, great, well done. So it's like Dan Carter, like Sonny Bill, and then him.
I wonder how much does that weigh into signing rugby contracts in 2020? You know what I mean? Just like, please see my following, and add some zeros to that contract. No, that's great. I think Facundo Issa, look, we talked about last week with Paul Tate about Bruni and Issa are both about the same, exact same size, like height and weight and everything. But Facundo Issa just does everything with he's far more explosive. Bruni he kind of makes Bruni look really slow. I mean, Issa last week, even in the losing battle, he led the carries and the run meters for the Argies. And I think, I think he can grow into one of the best number 8s in the world, to be honest. So I'm hoping I assume he'll be starting this week and going forwards. But I guess, look, in terms of who are we tipping, really, for this game? We've talked about changes to the sides. Australia's had 2 weeks off. Will we be able to use it as well as the All Blacks were in preparing for this game? I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and just tip Australia by 101 points, in solidarity. Get that Tri Nations back. I'll ask the boys first and give Squidge time to think. Harry, what are you tipping?
I was going to say I'm going to wait and listen to Squidge because I feel like he's a lot smarter than me.
Oh, I don't know about that at all.
Watch him nail it on the head. No, Harry, you're up first, mate. What's your tip for this one?
Okay, well, end of a long tour for Argies. Wallabies to get it done with some structure in their attack. Wallabies by 18 points.
Ooh. I was going to say, and we are very much Australian, so these are going to be bigger than I think other people would be saying. But look, I was going to say I think we had a lot of opportunities and didn't necessarily put them away. With James O'Connor there and a little bit more guidance with that 10 jersey, hopefully we can finish some plays off. I think, the Argies have just lost a little bit of that intensity after this long tour. So I think we're going to put a few of these tries away and we'll win by 15.
15, all right. And that leaves you, Squidge. What are you tipping? So Vamos by 27? Or?
Delusional.
What do they need? 94 points? They need 94 points to win it? 95 then. We'll call it 95.
We'll take it.
I lean towards the Wallabies too, but I can very much see Argentina winning by 2 or 3 points.
Yeah.
I feel like if it's a tight game, I'd almost fancy them more.
Yeah.
Just because of the way they have used Sanchez and Buffelli to just take points anywhere whenever they're in touch. And if it, I don't know what the weather's going to be like, if it's raining or if it's tight or if there's, there's kind of no space as it's possible there might be. I'd back Argentina to pull that out.
Yep.
However, I do think I can see the Wallabies by 8 or 9, by just over 2 scores.
It's interesting. We talk about how Argentina in the last game reverted to some of their tendencies and there was a bit more panic evident, things like that. I think, as you've said, if it's a close game, I actually think the Wallabies will be the side that will perhaps panic a little bit more, and Argentina, the closer it is, will be able to, just feed off the energy of getting that win. So, a close game. So, that'll be one. Yeah. Look, all right, let's get into dessert and just round out the pod.